Hey guys, Youngblood with you for your Summarize the Verse this week, covering the Around the Verse from July 13th. We start off with a studio update from LA, where they start talking about how they've reached a big milestone. It's basically their second pre-Evocati milestone, where now the directors are able to actually see all of the 3.0 features that are going to be in the game and how they start interacting and working together. And what this does is it allows them to really see the progress that's been made and make decisions on how things are going to go and how they've progressed. And basically, it's the first, I guess, real big step in my mind that shows that we're getting pretty darn close to this, reaching the Evocati step. The engineering team has been working on some pretty cool things. One of them is refactoring the persistent data manager. And what this is actually doing is this change is allowing the system to distinguish physical from actual ownership. Basically meaning, you know, are you just sitting in a ship, meaning that you are technically the physical owner of it, or do you actually have the papers that show that you own this ship? And this is going to impact things like persistent spawning, criminality, and missions. It's also going to impact things like tracking and management. You know, so from like the tracking perspective, if you park a Nox in the back of like a Cutlass or a Constellation or something like that, the next time you pull that ship, the Nox is still going to be in that ship. So it's going to make sure that there's that level of persistence and you know where all of your stuff actually is. The cargo and shopping experience has been getting some work. For example, placing cargo in physics grids. We saw a little bit of that in Bug Smashers. How cargo gets distributed in space after a cargo ship has exploded. And then basically, they want to talk about how your cargo system is going to interact with your ship systems in like your mobiGlas cargo app. So like once you've placed the cargo in your ship, it's going to show the percentage of your cargo hold that's now occupied, and it's going to also mean that you're going to be able to tie what you currently have in your ship, and you're going to pull up like different things around the system, basically showing like shopping services that they've already built, and it's going to tap in to allow you to see like what spaceports have this level of inventory and what the price is there. And we're going to see that actually being impacted real time by players. So for example, if a bunch of players just bring gold to, you know, Port Alizar, the price for gold that they're going to pay for you, like if you bring to Alizar and the supply is high, there's not a lot of demand, so the price that you're going to get is going to be lower. So you're going to be able to kind of shop around and see where you should actually be sending your stuff. And then once you send it there, you're going to have an impact on the overall shopping experience. Tech Content has been working on the springy landing gear technology, basically the compression that's been talked about quite a bit. That's going to impact how your landing feels. You're supposed to be able to kind of see the difference. So basically, the level that you land as far as your speed is concerned and the gravity on the planet and the type of surface that it is means that you're going to land in different ways, and it's all built on that compression technology from the landing gear. Basically, it's also going to make it so you can land in a much smoother or more kind of cushioned experience as opposed to this setting down a very firm rock like we're doing today. The QA team has been working on all the ships that now have Item System 2.0. They're also working on the mobiGlas rework, which is looking phenomenal. They're also working on kind of finishing up and touching up the planetary missions and the quantum travel updates that we've heard talked about in the past. In the ship's world, the Hurricane is now in production. It's in the white box stage. They've got lighting, cockpit layout, and hierarchy all completed. They've got rendering for the enter and exit of the cockpit and the turret. That's basically laid out at this point. Now, some of what's been done at this point are considered like temp finalized, but basically it's allowing them to develop other things based on what they've already developed. Then they'll go back and actually turn those temps into finals. The character team is producing the bridge officer's uniform. They're getting it into high poly state. The Shubin flight suit, which looks great, and the outlaw uniform are basically in the same spot. They're moving into high poly. They've developed some civilian costumes that are ready to go because we're going to be seeing a lot of civilians on Levski. In new news, they're actually developing tattoos, so you'll be able to, you know, tat up your character a little bit if you're really looking for that Mike Tyson face tattoo. There's a new character that they're developing called the Shipjacker. He looks pretty intense. They're supposed to be kind of a scary character. You know, based on the name Shipjacker, it sounds like somebody who's going to try and board your ship and steal it. And he looks pretty intense. Working on battle damaged imagery, so you know, if you look down at a dead body, you should be able to see the damage that they've taken. So basically, you can tell why that person is dead. So like the flight suit's going to show like bullet holes or singe marks, those types of things. You know, to kind of fill out. You're not just seeing a perfectly shaped person on the ground. You know, they should look like they're dead for a reason. And then again, we see a little bit more on the mobiGlas. We talked about it last week, but we do get another look at it, and basically the design of the device itself and how they're trying to layer that onto your character. Because, you know, it's this little wrist thing. It almost looks like a Fitbit. But what the deal is with it is, you know, it needs to be persistently on the top layer. You know, so for example, if you're wearing short sleeves and it's visible, but then you put on long sleeves and it's covered, well, then your hologram's not going to do any good. So they're working on kind of that layering technology of how it always is going to be the top layer, so you're always being able to see what's on it. They did a really great piece on Derelicts, basically showing us how they've been developing them and kind of what some of their intentions are. And basically, they want us to be able to look at a derelict ship and know how long it's been there and the type of environment it's based on the type of shaders that they're using for this. So, you know, if a ship is really broken down or it's really covered with sand or snow, you know it's been there for a little while, as opposed to just sitting there without much wear on the actual ship. You know, they should be able to, you should be able to also look at it and kind of be able to see the story that's being told. You know, you should be able to look at it and tell if this is a hostile location, if it's been taken over by bandits, if it was severely damaged. You know, you want to know what the story was behind finding this ship, not just randomly seeing it. You can kind of try and piece it together. But overall, they're trying to create moments that you basically are going to remember. You know, so you want to be able to go up and see a ship and be like, wow, that is really cool. And then maybe you tell your friends about what you saw and they want to go see the same thing. The way that they were starting to place these derelicts initially was they were kind of flying around and looking at things to try and find cool locations that would complement the story they're trying to tell. But it's just too timely to have people do that based on the scale of these systems. So the way they're doing it is they're just zooming around in the system editor and finding good spots using that. You know, they're making them very immersive as part of this too. So, you know, if they're inhabited and the sun goes down, there's going to be like lights that come on or a fire that's lit, you know, meaning you can probably see them from further away, or they're going to stand out a little bit at night. But it's not just like some static environment. It's going to change. I mean, speaking of static, they want to make them, you know, movable, and they want to make them feel real. So things like cloth and windmills, things that actually move as opposed to just having static images there, are going to not only help you find it, but also kind of add a level of realism. The number that they threw out there was 80%. 80% of the time you're going to just find the ship. 20% of the time, though, you may end up finding a derelict that somebody's created a home or a base out of it. So that may give you an idea of like what sort of situations or how often you're going to run into maybe hostile people that are going to try and prevent you from salvaging or, you know, actually getting in and taking things off of this scavenging type of gameplay. So that's about 20%. And then they also mentioned something that was kind of odd. I think this is something we're going to need a little bit more follow-up on, but they mentioned that the Caterpillar can have a custom length, which was complicated because of the way that it actually could show and the way that it would be done in the game for like pre-rendered and pre-placed derelicts. But the numbers they said was, you know, it could be a ship that has 2 cargo modules or 15 of them based on the way that it was built by the player. We've kind of been told to this point that you have 4 slots, and that's basically what you get, and you can customize those 4 the way you want. 15 steps way outside of that number, so getting more information on that is going to be really important, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. There was also a note about a surprise location. I'm actually going to do a follow-up video on that here shortly, so stay tuned for that. But that's basically your Summarize the Verse. If you guys have questions on any of this, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more, and have a great day. Take care.